All right, welcome to another edition of the HeartBreak series. I got my dad back in, and we're going to talk about the one and only Seneca Wallace was in game. And
Yep.
So
Thank God for YouTube. Get to go back and watch it all over again. That was fun. It was I forgot a lot about it, and it was a great game. That was a lot of fun. Brought back a lot of memories.
Yeah, so like to set the stage, it was at Arrowhead Stadium against the number third ranked team in the nation, Florida State, a team that won the national championship 2 years before. And like the beginning of the game, they were just talking about how Florida State, all they wanted to do is win the championship. They're here to win the championship. Said it a million times. And like the first quarter, it looked exactly like that. Florida State comes out, scores first, and Seneca Wallace's first drive throws a pick six.
So you want to talk about kind of the setup before the game, what it was like there? You just want to?
Sure, you can.
I mean, it was in Kansas City. It was the Eddie Robinson Classic, which, somebody asked me why it was in Kansas City at Arrowhead Stadium, but it was kind of an honor to be there because it was kind of a big deal, I thought, and it ended up being a beautiful day. And my brother and my brother-in-law and a really good friend of mine, probably my best friend in the world, went down to the game, the big Iowa State fan, and we got tailgated a long time, got to see some people, and it was just a great day. And then when the game started, and we were just getting it handed to us at the beginning.
The first quarter was really rough. As I said, Seneca threw a really bad pick six. It was like reminiscent of what Purdy did this year against TCU, the really bad pick. It wasn't that bad, but it was pretty bad. And then we just looked completely unmatched. Tony Elk gets a blocked field goal in that first quarter, and after that we hold them for a field goal, and then on the ensuing kickoff, we fumbled when we were returning it, we fumbled it, and then that's the end of the second quarter, and then Anquan Bolden's one of the best receivers.
Yeah, Anquan Bolden, totally forgot that he was playing in that game.
One of the best receivers ever. Scores a touchdown, 24-0 with 14 minutes left in the second quarter. It looks like a Baylor game 2013. Like it was just getting rolled. And then we follow that up with a good kickoff return that kind of shifts the momentum a little bit our way. Like, okay, we can, like, it was a long return. And then what's Rutland?
Hiawatha Rutland. Really had a really good game. He was a really funny guy. He's a stand-up comic, and he's one of the tragic endings to the story on that team. He was also another young man that drowned. Yeah. I believe drowned when he was in Florida. He's from Bradenton, Florida, but died way too early. And he's a couple of those kids off that team that did. It's just a tragic thing, but man, he had a heck of a game.
Yeah, he was really. I was really young, obviously, and I didn't really. This was the first time I watched the whole game through, and he stood out a lot. He could run the ball, and he broke away for the first touchdown that kind of gave us a breath of fresh air, like, okay, we can. And then the next possession, we hold them for a punt.
Well, let's go back to that run. I mean, I wanted to, being a former high school offensive lineman myself, I wanted to give a lot of credit to our line. They did a great job in that first half, especially, and Hiawatha's run was straight up the middle.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like he was juking people and it was a fluke. I mean, it was right off of our center, Zach Butler, I believe his name was, and did that several times. I mean, and our offensive line just did, they had talent level was a pretty
big gap.
Yeah, pretty big gap. That Bowler guy played the NFL was on their defense, and Anquan Bolden talked about him. But yeah, when we finally broke loose and got Hiawatha up the gut to score, that kind of gave us a little bit of hope that, this might not be as long of a day as we thought.
Yeah. It was like it was like a home game for us. It was
yeah.
There's like no Florida State fans there?
No, and they said it was 60,000 people, and they said 40 of them had to be Iowa State fans. Yeah. And it was wall-to-wall Iowa State people, and that was what made it so fun. It was, and I think we'll get to this at the end, but Coach McCarney really noticed that too, that it was mostly Iowa State fans, and even made the kids come over and acknowledge the fans when it was over. But yeah, You know how Iowa State fans are. You give them all day to tailgate,
and
then have a game at night, and it can get kind of ugly fast.
And this is probably the first, because I scours the crowd a couple times, and they're showing how they actually sell alcohol in the stadium. So
it was an NFL stadium.
Yeah.
So that didn't help. I mean, because he'd been there all day anyway, and it was hot. I mean, it was a warm day and humid, and so it was fun. I mean, it was a long time ago, and I had a lot. Watching it again, I was starting to remember some of the things that happened and some of the names, and they really stick with you. It was because it was a phenomenal game.
So like continuing the second quarter, we fought Ankle scored. Rutland scores a touchdown. Then we hold FSU for a punt, and had a really good punt inside like the 5, and then we didn't really go anywhere.
Yeah, isn't that the one we fumbled, or is that a different possession where we fumbled the ball after we had the ball on their 5? Or excuse me, on our own 5, and then we fumbled the. Maybe I'm thinking of a different possession.
Yeah, I think you're jumping ahead.
Okay.
So we didn't go anywhere. Maybe you're right. And then Tony Elk has to punt from from the very end of the end zone. It was a pretty bad punt. I mean, it was a pretty dicey situation there.
Right.
And then Florida State scores, so it goes up 31-7.
I actually forgot Tony Elk punted too.
Yeah,
he was our hammer, the guy that had the big leg, that missed the kicked the field goal against Alabama, that they said should have been in but wasn't in, and I didn't realize he was punting in that game either until we watched it again.
Yeah, that's the one thing. That game, this is the first game following the Alabama game, so
yeah, right. That had a lot to do with why we had so many people there,
because that's 2 heartbreak in a row.
Oh,
brutal.
Yeah, the one that went over the upright that most people think was in.
Yeah, I watched that yesterday, like the very ending of that game, like for the first time, and like even the announcers like it was in.
Yeah,
and then it's like, okay, the game's over now.
And you look, changing the subject on us, obviously going back to the Alabama game, but there's a shot of that underneath the goalpost, and I've questioned whether they would say it was in today or not.
Really,
I think the problem was that the goalposts are too short.
Yeah.
I mean, today they're a lot. I mean, the kickers have bigger legs and they're a lot longer. I think if that's in Arrowhead, it hits the upright at least.
Yeah.
And so we know one way or the other. I think it was just an old upright that was too short. That's my opinion.
But being Iowa State, you need to not make it that close. Whenever it's a judgment call, it never goes our way.
And that was Alabama pre-Nick Saban too. So that wasn't today's Alabama, but
which is crazy.
Yeah.
That's a completely other game, but it's just interesting how that was the game. And like this is the first game after that game.
Yeah.
And continuing on. So Florida State scores off that bad punt. It was like a shortened field. They just scored. And then there's like a minute left. Seneca leads them all the way down for a touchdown. Tight end touchdown. It looked pretty good. And then the second half, it was.
No, wait a minute. Time out. We had so what was the score at halftime?
It was
because we had a third and goal.
31-14.
So when was the third and goal and Seneca scrambled?
That was in
the third quarter?
We're getting to that, yeah.
I thought it was in the first half. Huh? Oh. I'm sorry.
So, So that was a huge play because we needed momentum to go in the halftime. Like just some momentum because 31-7. Seneca leads them down, scores a touchdown. To start the second half, there's defensive stops both ways. Seneca, and then we finally get a drive. Seneca has a great pass to Lane Danielson, like the jump pass.
Yeah, Lane Danielson had a phenomenal game. Yeah, he looked so good in that game, man.
Yeah, I forgot how good he was. He was phenomenal. It was like basically Seneca, Rutland, and Jack Whitford and Lane Danielson.
Offensively.
That was it. And a couple tight end passes.
Yeah. And we had another fourth down play we hit the tight end too. The Knock kid, he's not a kid anymore, it was 20 years ago. But I mean that was a big play as well. So yeah, it was a lot of Lane, a lot of Seneca, a lot of Hiawatha. That was about it.
Yeah. I'm not doing a very good job of going through this, but And then after the Lane Danielson touchdown, we come out and we get a stop. And then Seneca has a couple, like it was a drive or third and longs. We finally convert. And then there's one play where we get a couple penalties, so it's like 2nd and 18. And then Seneca just runs it so it's 3rd and 2. And then Rutland gets the first down. And then it was like one of the closest 4th and inches I've ever seen.
Right, yeah, it was within like a chain link and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Seneca gets it. And then this is the drive where we get all the way to the 1 yard line, 3rd and goal. Seneca runs backwards, gets caught. We have to settle for a field goal. It's 31-17.
Yeah.
And obviously that and like the blocked field goal and like the pick 6, that's the game.
But that 3rd and goal on the 1, and, you know, I will never disparage Seneca because he was a phenomenal player. And I hate to say it, you know, his first 2 steps when he takes off are fast as anybody. I mean, no offense, Brock, but you don't have that takeoff speed. I mean, when he took his first 2 steps, when he decided to break the pocket, he was fast. I mean, but I think he thought he could outrun the Florida State guys, and he just got himself into a position. I think he ended up going back to the 20.
Yeah, it was
a long ways backwards. Yeah,
that's little things in the game. But if we don't have Seneca, we lose by 80.
No, I mean Seneca just. You forget how when he decided to go, he can go his first 10 yards so fast. Yeah. And he had a cannon for an arm too. Yeah. I mean, some of the throws he made some of them were marginal as far as, you know, almost being picked off. But, you know, I think we were still, you know, realize this is the first game of the year. We've been scrimmaging against ourselves to that point. Now we got to come out and play Florida State.
You're not playing UNI.
No.
Or UNI is always but like, it's like playing a team like okay, just like different. Like UNI, we're supposed to beat them, and then UNI,
which we don't. We've lost to them a lot.
No, but we go in thinking we're going to beat them, and then, but this is like, we have to really level ourselves up.
Right.
We get knocked in the face for the first quarter. We couldn't have a worse first quarter.
No.
And then Dan McCartney's team came back. It was like really reminiscent of the Iowa game.
Right.
A couple of weeks after this game.
We think about, you know, the next 2 games are Kansas and Tennessee Tech.
Yeah.
And we just mauled them.
Yeah.
And so that was actually, and, you know, looking back on it, I'm glad that we didn't have a letdown, because the end of the season, we can talk about that later, was a disaster. But, McCartney did a phenomenal job of coaching. I think a lot of it had to do, you know, with as many fans as we had there. I mean, it was like a Hilton Coliseum type atmosphere. It was that loud. With friends of mine and I had our forearms were purple the next morning because everybody was beating on the bleachers in front of you to make noise as loud as you possibly could. And I know we're going to get to that play. I remember when Teef Austin came over to the bench one time, he's pointing to the crowd, and that was a big factor in it, in the game, the crowd itself.
Yeah, like, and it's a crowd. It's a stadium built for noise. Like,
right.
It's one of the loudest in the NFL. I think they have like the Guinness World Records for like the loudest stadium.
That in Seattle, probably.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So, like, we're going to the fourth quarter. Like, who was their quarterback? Chris
Ricks.
He was really good.
Yeah.
He throws a pick.
On the quick out, it's an interception. Picked off. Teef Austin. Let it go. Hit from behind. All the way to the 25.
It was almost a pick 6. And then
to Teef Austin.
Yeah.
Shout out to Teef, because he was in my niece's class. My niece got to know him a little bit, so I thought he was a great guy. But it was that play that he came over, and I was only about 10 rows up, 50-yard line, had great seats. And I yelled out to Teef, and he pointed up at us because everybody was so jacked up. And he jumped the route, and Wagner took away.
At this point, we have all the momentum.
Right.
And then Lane Danielson has a really sick reverse.
Yeah.
And then, like, the next play we try was fake reverse, which I thought was kind of funny. And then Rutland scores a touch. Rutland scores, but they call him down at the 1.
Yeah, and there was no replay.
And then
go back, you watch it, you don't get to see if he was in, because he fell like his knees were on the goal line and fell into the end zone. You never got to see the replay.
It was like very reminiscent of the David Montgomery thing from the Liberty Bowl. It was a touchdown.
Right. Yeah, I know. There was a lot of stuff on there when you look back at these old films. We kept yelling at the TV, what down is it?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't until right before the snap, they would show what down and distance was. I mean, and
it's just frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, and I thought the cool thing, it was obviously a different time, but when they show the crowd, there's no cell phones, nobody's taking selfies, nobody's looking down, texting somebody. Everybody's engaged with each other at the game, and I really kind of miss that. I mean, when you go to a basketball game, there's a lot of people that are looking at their phones and taking selfies and doing the duck lips and all this stuff when they're taking selfies and stuff. I mean,
I'll challenge you on that. Jack Trice, when you're there, you can't be on your cell phone because you can't get service.
Oh, well, maybe that's by design.
So yeah, Ames, Iowa is not built for 60,000 people in the same area, so you can't have service. So that kind of helps make it so no one's on their phone.
Right.
Like Hilton, you can kind of be there. Lately when
I thought Jamie put booster towers around.
I think
Jack
for
Trice,
a couple games. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure, but
Doesn't matter.
I'm just speaking from personal experience. You can't use your phone.
Yeah.
So, and then Rutland was on scores, but they don't give it to him. Seneca finally punches it back in, 31-24.
And in the play, this is significant because the play Seneca scores on, he's running an option down the scrimmage line and does a fake pitch and dives into the end zone. Exact same play. That's the last play of the game.
Yeah, and
exact same play.
We run that play, same play we do against Bob Sanders.
Right.
In the Iowa game.
Iowa game 3 weeks later, whatever it was. Yeah.
So it's 31-24. And then Florida State goes down. There's a 4th and 2. They get the 4th and 2. And then Anquan Bolden scores a touchdown. It's 38-24. And
Anquan Bolden's touchdown was a man amongst boys.
Yeah, he was.
I mean, he was unbelievable.
It was a young Ellis Hobbs trying to guard him.
Right. Ellis Hobbs, who has a ring. I mean,
Yeah,
so Ellis had a pretty good NFL career himself.
Probably the best cornerback in Iowa State history guarding him.
Right.
He's just young, but
Yeah.
and
There's a lot of young guys in there. I mean,
yeah,
that you look back at the roster of some names that you remember from Iowa State history, but yeah, it was a significant game just historically too, but it was too bad. So we into the fourth quarter yet?
Yeah, that was the fourth quarter
Oh.
where Seneca punches it in, and then Florida State gets the 4th and 2. Anquan Bolden scores. I just wrote down Lane Danielson had a fantastic game, and then the announcers talk about how Iowa State is the only team in the Big 12 that plays Colorado, Nebraska, Texas, and Oklahoma.
That year, that was before when it wasn't a full round robin. We had all of those teams on our schedule.
We had to play Oklahoma and then at Texas back to back.
Yeah.
We did that for 10 years.
And so that Oklahoma, this is off the subject too, but that Oklahoma game was at the peak. We were undefeated. Heisman hype for Seneca was at an all-time peak, and we go down and start off the game and just lay a monstrous egg. But we didn't get beat as bad as what I thought. I mean, it was 31-7. It could have been a lot worse, but it was a beatdown though.
We lost 49-3.
Well, it was close. 31-7, 41-3. Who cares? Anyway, it wasn't the 50s. We've had worse losses before. But
Yeah. Getting back on track now.
Sorry, am I supposed to not?
So
you want to talk about the Hampton game again?
That next drive, no. Watching these two, wow, I'm so glad I was young and didn't. I would not get over that game. Imagine if me and Michael were there when that happened.
Oh my God.
It would have been
No,
young Michael.
No, because Michael, you were too young. Michael had a meltdown. Michael is my oldest son. Had a meltdown at the Alabama game.
Yeah.
And so did I. I mean, but I was trying to be a parent at the same time, and yeah, that was brutal.
Yeah. So the next drive after Bolton scores, we get the 4th and 1 with the tight end, catches it and then fumbled punches it and then goes out of bounds.
That could have been a disaster.
Game over.
Right, because he punched the ball out and it went 10 yards down the field
and
ends up going out of bounds. if it goes just kicks a little bit to the left, it stays in bounds and it's game over. And that was Knock, I believe, was the tight end.
Yeah.
His dad was an assistant at Iowa State at the time. But yeah, that was a play that could have, if the ball bounces the wrong direction, it's over.
But like looking at this fourth quarter, so many things went our way, other than obviously the last sequence. But
yeah, wasn't there a personal foul on Florida State?
yeah, that was the last. After staying on track. But Seneca.
I'm not going to let you stay on track.
Seneca was. I just put Seneca was really fast.
Wow, Captain Obvious.
And then there's a play there where it's like, oh wow, and then he does another sweet jump pass to Montgomery, touchdown, 38-31. We have all the momentum.
Now, said jump pass. It was a 40-yard jump pass. I mean, he saw he was open and just said, I want to get this to you as fast as I possibly can. And Jamal Montgomery was in between two defenders and just hit him right on the money. And I remember that when I watched it. I mean, I remember the feeling of watching that play. I mean, that was so awesome.
Yeah. And then Florida State, we get a stop. And then it was like 3rd and 2 or whatever. But then there was a late hit after the play, personal foul.
Which they also never showed the replay of.
No.
You never saw what happened.
Yeah.
It was some Florida State guy took a cheap shot at one of our guys, and they throw the flag, and then it's 3rd and 18.
Yeah, and then we get a stop. Tyson Smith with a tackle loss, 4th down. We have literally all the momentum. And then they show a graphic, Iowa State hasn't beat it. They're 0-29 against ranked teams since 1993.
Yeah.
They always have to just
0-29. I mean,
wow.
Against ranked teams. We played a lot of ranked teams. I mean, Iowa, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Colorado, ranked all the time.
Yeah.
And we were an 0-29. I mean,
and then we have all the momentum, as I said 1,000 times. We start the drive by almost fumbling. Seneca bobbles.
Right. Yeah.
It's like that could have just ended it. And then there's a pass interference on a slant.
The shortstop on the slant. Montgomery has a pass interference call made.
We get the first down. Jack Whitford has a fantastic catch. And then Montgomery has another catch for first down. Then Seneca gets sacked. We're running out of timeouts at this point.
We're down 24 seconds or
24. Seneca gets sacked. We call timeout. There's another incomplete pass after it. And then 3rd and 17, there's a pass to Lane Danielson. And then
that's on 21 of 32. Can he get it done? He's got a good lane to look through. And he's got Lane Danielson. He's close to a first down. I believe he's got it. That'll stop it.
That gets the first down that stops the clock because we don't have timeouts at this point, I don't think. And then Seneca, this is the play that this podcast is about, that people still talk about this. Seneca takes it, runs to the right.
He breaks the pocket up the middle first and then breaks to the right sideline.
And then dives, obviously in.
So he's running full blast down the sideline. His left foot is the one that they call out, I believe.
Because if you look at the video, the ref is looking at his feet, not the ball.
So he's looking. So the referee looks at his foot and thinks he's out of bounds. And there's many angles. And the referee is 6 feet, 5 feet from there. So he should have seen it. There is green grass between his foot and the sideline. And he blows his whistle and calls him down, because if he doesn't call him down, it is not even close to being touched.
I'm pretty sure because he's looking at his feet. He probably's like, I didn't look if the ball was in. So he's like, I better call it down.
But if he doesn't call him out, the ball, it is a touchdown.
No, but he's looking at his feet. He's not. He's like, I can't confirm it as a touchdown because I wasn't even looking at the ball because it happened that fast.
Right. So they didn't get any help from the guy. And there should have been the umpire or somebody coming down.
And there's no replay at this.
No.
So and then there's one TV where it's you can't really see, but and then there's after the Cyclones video, and then the Pete Taylor call.
Pocket, runs it upfield, at the 10, to the outside, 5, diving, no, he's not in, he's at the 1, out of bounds with 4 seconds to go.
And then he's it's a video of him obviously being in.
Right, yeah. So, he was in. It was Seneca knew he was in. Yep. He turns around, throws his hands up in the air, but Seneca being Seneca, one thing I loved about watching him is he always acted like he'd been there before. He wasn't demonstrative or throwing his hands up in the air saying I was in. And then the next play is they run the exact same play they scored on before, but the middle linebacker comes down the line and makes a great play on Seneca. And they were trying to put it on Seneca. They were saying he was indecisive. I don't agree with that at all. I mean, I think he was doing the exact same play like you said we ran against Iowa a few weeks later, and they just made a good play on it. And it should have been a touchdown. It shouldn't have even been there. But but the big question is that if we ask Coach McCarney,
if we score there, do we go for 2?
Are we going for 2 or are we going for 1?
At the end of the game.
Because that doesn't tie it. We still have to make an extra point, which if you're an Iowa State fan, extra points are an adventure. They've been that way for 30 years.
Just ask Grant Mahoney that.
Yeah. I mean, so it was, I would love to know whether – I've never heard him interviewed or asked that question if he was going for 2 or 1.
And then after they go to Bobby Bowden, and then Bobby Bowden just looks relieved. They didn't lose. He's like, we got out-coached. Kind of got outplayed.
Did you guys let down a little? No, we didn't. We didn't try to let down. We tried to win it, but we just were not sharp. They beat us to the punch. I thought they just did a better job of coaching and everything else than we did.
Just to the punch, he kept saying, and he was very, he wasn't being a arrogant blue blood. I mean, he was really giving. And the thing that I remember seeing this one of the first times I watched the replays that Coach McCarney, being Coach McCarney, has a lot of respect for his elders, I guess you could say, in the game. And he goes out to Coach Bowden, and you can hear him say, as the broadcasters are talking, it was an honor to coach against you. Yeah. So it was, he had a lot of respect for Coach Bowden. And Jeff Bowden was their defensive or offensive coordinator, I believe, at the time.
Offensive, maybe.
Yeah. Well, so another one of the Bowdens was coaching there. And so, it was a fun game, and I thought Bobby gave us a lot of credit, which he should have. I mean, we outplayed him for the most part. And think about some of those plays that, fumbles and, not getting in a 3rd and 1 and
block field goal, the pick 6, the first drive, this whole season. Yeah.
So, I mean, it could have been different, but, you never know. I mean, we might have woken up Florida State earlier too. You never know.
Well, the Seneca was in thing. This kind of robs us of it would have been the most rewatchable games in Iowa State history.
Just so, put yourself in a time machine and they call him in.
Yeah.
Now, we don't automatically win that game.
Well,
but now we're in a position to, do something. Or we have all the momentum. Our defense is playing great. And I brought up our offensive line earlier. Seneca is not running for his life at all.
No.
He got sacked in that last drive, and that was one of the first ones of the game. Might have been the first one. But then as the year went on, we got later in the season, he was running for his life. But Seneca didn't, we had plenty of time. We were running it up the gut with Hiawatha, our offensive line, Zach Butler, the Casey Shelton, I believe, was a Valley kid. I remember I probably ought to look that up to make sure I don't offend Casey. But it was a phenomenal job by our offensive lineman.
And we looked outmatched, and then we just came back with.
I was right. Casey Shelton was from Valley.
Yeah. We came back, and it's just reminisces. How many games are where we just get so close?
Yeah.
Another one we're probably going to do with me and Michael and you, maybe the Aaron Kraft game.
Oh, God.
We were down 10 with 4 minutes left and come back and should have won that game.
Why did you bring that up?
Aaron Kraft game.
That was brutal. Had to drive home in a flipping blizzard after that, too.
Yeah, we'll talk about that game at length. That whole season, anyways. Yeah. So that game, the Oklahoma game, Brock Purdy a couple years ago with against CeeDee Lamb. Kohler hits the catch, and then we go for 2. Pat gets mauled.
Oh my God, yeah.
It's just never goes our way.
But but if you put in a historical perspective of that game, we had just had a really good year the year before, so things were starting to turn.
Yeah.
Did we honestly think we were going to go in? Did anybody in the crowd honestly think we were going to go in and beat Florida State that day?
A team that won the national championship 2 years ago.
At 9 o'clock in the morning, nobody was thinking that. By 5 o'clock in the afternoon, probably everybody thought we could, because we, had the goggles on, as they say. But it was a really, pivotal game, I think, in Iowa State football history. It's because, first of all, we're still talking about it 20 years later.
Yeah.
And we were playing with the Blue Bloods. So we were starting to turn the corner. Unfortunately, that year didn't turn out
No.
like we hope. I think we lost 6 out of our last 7. I mean, it
We
was,
lost to UConn
and I was at the
3-1.
UConn game too. It was awful. But that game was, a big part of, what we're experiencing today, in my opinion, because it got us on the map with Seneca. Seneca goes on, has a great NFL career. Ellis Hobbs has a great NFL career. I didn't even bother going through the roster of the Florida State guys in that game, but I'm sure there's
NFL player after NFL player.
right. I mean, we showed that we had a lot of heart too. I mean, and it brought up a lot of names that I hadn't thought of in a long time. Like Michael Wagner was the backup running back at the time. He was the one that had the big block on Seneca's run against Texas Tech that probably would be called a penalty today.
And we get kicked out of the game.
Yeah, and Zach Butler was one of the offensive linemen that he's keep track of. Casey Shelton, like I said, and Jamal Montgomery. I mean, all of these guys, and Tyson Smith from Dowling had a big play at the end of the game. So yeah, it was a lot of fun to go back and look at it. But even now, watching that game, the feeling that I had afterwards is that, man, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and we could have won. I wasn't devastated. Now, if we would have had replay back then, and you see it on the big screen,
and
that he's obviously the angle we've all seen since then is down the sideline that was not on TV. But he was obviously in.
To counter that, I don't think there was video evidence from the TV broadcast to overturn that.
No, but there is an angle. You can look it up.
It's the Iowa State one.
Yeah, it's straight down the line. There's no doubt he's in. But
which would have been even more frustrating.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it was fun though. I mean, it was a great day, a lot of fun. I think a lot of enthusiasm by Iowa State and really put us in a good light. Man, they were talking about our fans and how many people were there, and it was going back to Hilton South. I mean, Kansas City is a place that Iowa State fans love to go, and Kansas City's a lot of fun to go to. If you've ever been to the Power and Light District, and during the Big 12 tournament, I mean, and it's a warm day. There's no better place to be. So we need a lot of games in Kansas City, in all sports.
Yeah. So I'm probably thinking the next one we'll probably do the Aaron Kraft game next week. I don't know. I'm not sure if there's a YouTube the full game, but I think there's some we probably could remember.
Yeah, that's fresh in our minds. I mean,
that one. Yeah.
That was when you and I and Will was with us too, right? Yeah. So Will is my youngest, and it was.
We can talk about that one this week.
Crazy.
Yeah. A game that
lives in infamy, as they say.
Seneca was in.
Seneca was definitely in, and Seneca, we need you on the podcast, dude.
Yeah, if we can get his take, I'm sure he's probably talked about 1,000 times,
and I'm sure he probably would still talk about it.
Yeah,
Gowrie strong, man.
Yep. All right, well,
sound the sirens. Twitter, follow him.
Yep.
Get some more followers.
All right. Well, I'll talk to you guys later.
See ya.